Quick start understanding of government structure. A state is not a state of state. Read the statement above as many times as necessary and think about it. Florida is not the same as state of Florida. In fact, Florida is not the same as the state of Florida, the state of Florida, or the state of Florida, or anything calling itself the state of Florida or Florida or. These are all separate and distinctly different entities. Florida is corporate but unincorporated, meaning that it has a name and a physical definition but is not incorporated into any other country or corporation. Florida, the actual state, stands alone. It is complete. It has well-defined physical borders and is populated by living people. All these other things calling themselves some variation of state of Florida are fundamentally different. These are called inchoate states or states of states or incomplete states. These states of states are various kinds of business organizations, and they have no physical borders and no people live in them. They are all incorporated, meaning that they are part of larger, parent organizations, and to the extent that they are inhabited by persons, not people. Persons are officers and employees of corporations who have duties to perform and who reside on a temporary basis in our actual states. Stop a moment and think about what you have just learned. The people living in Florida and the persons working for the state of Florida are not in the same political status. They aren't operating in the same capacities. Just like a state is not a state of state, one of the people isn't a person. Quick start, page 1 of 6. The difference is very clear-cut, yet many of us get confused and think that the state of Florida is the same as Florida, when it is not. We also assume that if you have a pulse, you are one of the people, but in fact, you may be acting in the capacity of a person. Instead, there is an apples and oranges difference involved, and it needs to be clearly understood. You, as one of the people born in a state of the Union, say Virginia, start your life as a Virginian. You are one of the living people of Virginia and you employ the state of Virginia to do business for you. However, you can, if you so choose, go to work for the state of Virginia, and accept an office of personhood. Do you see how that changes the capacity in which you are acting? You went from being one of the people and an employer, to acting as a person and being an employee. In effect, you left Virginia behind and entered the state of Virginia. By doing this, you subjected yourself to the private rules, codes, regulations, statutes, and policies of this business organization, which is simply in the business of providing governmental services. In addition to accepting a paying job with a state of state, you can unwittingly enter this status if you volunteer to serve the state of state as a voter, a tax collector known as a withholding agent, a juror, or in any similar capacity. Finally, there are 2 other ways you can leave your home in Virginia and find yourself in the foreign territory of a state of state. You can willingly and knowingly seek welfare benefits from the state of state, or you can be turned over to the state of state as a ward of the state, that is, an incompetent of some kind, an abandoned child, a pauper, a mental incompetent, or someone so physically incapacitated they can't care for themselves. Most of us have been misidentified as wards of state organizations when we were babies in our cradles. This has been done via false registration processes that result in equally unconscionable contracts obligating us to act as persons, known as citizens of the state of state. So how do you get home to your birthright political status as one of the living people? A free man, a Virginian, living in Virginia, owed all the protections of the law of the land? This question will be answered, but first, we need to look a bit deeper into what these state-of-state business organizations really are, and who or what operates them. Original sovereign jurisdiction. Government of, for, and by the people/people. Our actual government was set up during the War of Independence, between 1776 and 1781. The first instrumentality of this government was the Union of States, published July 4, 1776, as a result of the unanimous Declaration of Independence issued by the original colonies. A quick start, page 2 of 6. Few months later, in September 9 of 1776, these new states joined together and created a federation of the states of the Union doing business as the United States of America. Nearly 5 years later, the states additionally created a confederation to take up some of the slack and conduct commercial business for them. All three, the Union, the Federation, and the Confederation, were set up and functional during the Revolutionary War, and all three continued to function before, during, and after the constitutions were adopted more than a decade later. Stop and think about that. It is important to understand that the federal constitutions represent the implementation of treaty agreements that were reached with King George and the Pope as part of the peace treaties ending the War of Independence. It is also important to understand that our federal constitutions, like all constitutions, are debt agreements based on service contracts. Someone agrees to do something and someone else agrees to pay for it. In the case of the federal constitutions, the people acting as state citizens and occupying the international land jurisdiction owed to each of the states, agreed to pay for certain enumerated services and also agreed to delegate the powers needed to perform these services to subcontractors. There are 19 enumerated services and 19 enumerated delegated powers granted to 3 federal subcontractors. They were /R. 1. The States of America, operated by the United States of America, the original Confederation, under the Constitution for the United States of America, which were American subcontractors, organized as states of states, doing business under names styled like this: the State of New York. This organization functioned from 1787 to 1863. 2. The British Territorial United States, doing business as the United States of America, operating under the Constitution of the United States of America. 3. The Municipal United States Government, doing business as the United States, operating under the Constitution of the United States. Do you notice something important? Our actual and original government and its instrumentalities, the Union doing business as the United States, and the Federation doing business as the United States of America, and the Confederation doing business as the States of America, don't operate under any constitution. It's only the federal subcontractors that operate under constitutions. Why? Because we don't pay ourselves in gold to mow our own lawns. So our actual government is the Union, the Federation, and the Confederation. The subcontractors are the American federal, British territorial, and papal municipal businesses. Quick start, page 3 of 6. The American federal subcontractors ceased cooperative operations in 1860, and the remaining federal states of states went bankrupt in 1863. So if you took an oath to protect and preserve the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, were you told any of this? Did you know that you were taking an oath to support and defend the service contracts of the remaining foreign business interests? Were you told that you would be working for the Pope or the Queen? Were you told that the American federal subcontractors were out of business, still pending reconstruction? So there was no possibility that you were working directly for the American states and people? Were you told that, ultimately, no matter which remaining federal subcontractor you worked for, federal civil service or U.S. military, you'd be working for the Pope? The Pope directly controls the municipal United States government and the federal civil service, and indirectly controls the U.S. military because the Queen operates as his overseer of Commonwealth, that is, British territorial operations. At any time, was it ever your understanding that you were working for the Pope or the British monarch acting as his overseer? Read that. The United States refers to the Pope's municipal government and the United States of America refers to the Pope's territorial/Commonwealth government under the oversight of the British monarch. If you are like most Americans, you thought that the United States of America was the same as the United States of America, but one is a foreign British territorial subcontractor at the federal level, and the other is the Federation of States. Actual states. Exactly which one of these two entities did you mean to give your oath to? The actual government of the American states and people, or a foreign federal subcontractor? And if you were never given full disclosure about any of this, why would you feel obligated to an oath that was made under conditions of deceit and non-disclosure? What possible legal or lawful obligation could ever be created by such an oath, purloined under conditions of non-disclosure? States of states. We left off the discussion about the states and the states of states with the question of what are these business organizations? Who or what is running them? We are now prepared to answer that question. There are two states of states organizations in each state of the Union. Quick start page 4 of 6. One is a British territorial state of state organization operating under names styled like this, the state of New Hampshire. The other is a municipal state of state organization operating under names styled like this, the state of New Hampshire. There are not supposed to be any municipal states of states operating within the borders of our actual states of the Union. In fact, there should be no municipalities anywhere on our soil and no municipal corporations, either. The Constitution of the United States only provides for one municipality, the municipality of Washington, D.C., and that is limited to the 1 mile square located within the boundary stones designated for it within the District of Columbia. The territorial states of states are, strictly speaking, not allowed either. They came in and usurped into the vacuum of power created when the American States of States ceased functioning. As an emergency measure. They've kept the emergency going ever since, and never bothered to explain any of this to the American public. So we've had cuckoo bird British territorial states of states operating in our states, and these organizations have operated in collusion with the municipal states of states to rob the actual states and people blind. They formalized their collaboration via the Declaration of Interdependence of the Governments in the United States, signed in 1937. The clear duty that these federal subcontractors owed to us was to fully disclose the situation at the end of the Civil War and to assist us in good faith to restore our lawful government to full form and function. Instead, they left our actual flag face down, struck, in the Capitol Rotunda, in the Senate chambers and the House chambers, and did nothing to correct. They couldn't even take care of the Title IV flag we allowed them to use when exercising our delegated powers. They let a pirate like Russell J. Gould walk into the Capitol and claim it as if it were their property, instead of property belonging to us, the United States of America, the states of the Union, the American states and people. Hordes of foreign political lobbyists have infested our capital and used our public resources and treasuries and assets as if we were gone on an endless holiday, lost at sea, and our erstwhile allies, the governments of Great Britain and Westminster, fed on our substance and plundered and pillaged our states and our people for generations. These are the facts, and if you are Americans, it's time to take stock of them. Please note that the deceptions involved are all similar forms of deceit. We have been led to mistake states of states for states, territorial states of states for confederate states of states, foreign municipal states of states for businesses that have a right to be on our soil, people for persons, the United States of America for the United States. Quick start page 5 of 6. Of America, and even the United States of America, incorporated, as the United States of America. No wonder people are confused. No wonder this country has been kept at constant war. No wonder that our institutions and our social fabric have decayed. No wonder that generations of public school children have been fed pablum and false assumptions. No wonder that our country has declined in absolutely every category of measurable achievement. We can't tell our butt from buttercups without extreme effort on our own parts to delve out our own well-obscured history and map it out as we have just mapped it out for you. And it all begins with the simple observation that a state is not a state of state. Right now, the perpetrators of these confusions have been thrown into havoc, because their constructive frauds and deceits and embezzlements have been discovered and brought forward. Both the United States doing business as the United States Incorporated, and the United States of America, doing business as the United States of America Incorporated, have been bankrupted for cause and criminality. Both remaining federal subcontractors are at least temporarily out of pocket, out of business, scrabbling around to create some new deceptively named corporation they can throw into the gap and hope to continue the same old game. In Scotland, they recently created a new version of the United States of America, and we have already complained about their continuing abuse of our name and trademark. By operation of law, when a power delegated to another principal or party can no longer be exercised by that principal or party due to their incompetence, as in bankruptcy incompetence, the delegated power returns back to the delegating power. In this case, the delegated powers have returned to the United States of America. If you made an oath to serve under those delegated powers, your oath has returned to us, too. Remember to continue your education.